Good afternoon, Ruchi ma'am.
Good afternoon, madam. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes, ma'am, we'll begin shortly.
Okay, okay, okay. Hmm.
With your permission, ma'am, shall we begin?
Yeah, please, we can start.
A very good afternoon to Professor Dr. Ruchi Ghosh Dasudar, ma'am, Professor and HOD, Department of Sociology, Barkatullah University, Bhopal, and Mr. Gaurav Gulati, Director, Roy Panal Group, a unit of Arjun Das Gulati Memorial Society, Prayagraj, and all the participants. I, Priyanshu Singh Dixit, welcome you all on day 3 of the 15 days online refresher course on teaching pedagogy, legal studies, commerce, and social sciences organized by the Department of Legal Studies and Research, Barkatullah University, Bhopal, and Roy Panal Group, a unit of Arjun Das Gulati Memorial Society, Prayagraj, in collaboration with Guru Angad Dev Teaching Learning Center, Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya, National Mission on Teachers and Teaching, Ministry of Education, Government of India. For our first session today, we have Professor Dr. Ruchi Ghosh Dasudar ma'am as our resource person. Ma'am has over 30 years experience of teaching and her area of specialization is research techniques and gender issues. She is currently the head of the Department of Sociology, Barkatullah University, Bhopal. We are honored to have you here, ma'am, and I would like to request Ruchi ma'am to kindly proceed with the session. The topic of this session is teaching practices.
Thank you so much, Priyanshi. I would like to at the outside thank HOD Department of Law, Barkatullah University for having given me the opportunity along with her, Dr. Gaurav Gulati of Detroit Panel Group. Obviously, this is an honor, and each time it's also a learning experience. So I'm very happy to be here. Also, I will have to start with a small apology. Although I have a small PPT with me, which I would like to share with you as and when possible, but as of now, there is no electricity and therefore no internet. So I'm a little limited by the circumstances over here. I hope I'm audible to all.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Alternatively, can I just WhatsApp my PPT? Perhaps somebody else
Sure.
who has this electricity
Yes, ma'am. Just
facility
share
can
it with
share.
me. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am. Just
I'll
share
do
it
that.
with me. I will forward it to the Gulati, sir.
Right. Please, ma'am. Have you? Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Have
I
you received
received your
it?
PPT. Yeah, I received. I am
Yeah.
sharing that with
Okay.
Gulati.
Yeah.
Gaurav, I am
Thank you, ma'am.
sharing it
Please.
with you.
Your help is important at this juncture. But nonetheless, with your kind permission, I would like to begin my talk. I'll be focusing on teaching practice.
Ma'am,
You all know we have been, Mona madam here. You can't hear?
Ma'am, there's a minor
Madam,
network
I will
issue.
share within. Hello. Yes, ma'am. I'm just sharing it. Yeah, they will share it with all the participants and that will be visible. Just a minute. Gaurav? Gaurav ji, are you listening me? Gaurav, I have sent that PP to you. Please present that there if it is possible. Yes, ma'am. He is sharing.
Okay, thank you so much. While this happens, I would like to just share briefly the background of what I want to talk today. As is obvious, most of us here are teachers, and we have varying number of years of experience. This is, of course, something part of everyday life. But teaching practices, as is with other things also, you will find that there are two distinct areas under which one can look at this. One is, of course, the theoretical, conceptual, and academic dialogue that accompanies this entire process of teaching practices. And the other is the actual reality or actual processes teaching. Another thing very crucial to the understanding of these issues is that we have to see it as a continuum. We cannot see teaching separate from learning. Teaching is, of course, intended for learning, but all of teaching doesn't translate to learning and vice versa. The learner doesn't only learn from the teacher, doesn't only learn from the curriculum, doesn't only learn from what happens in the classroom. So both the processes are very independent in a lot of ways, and at the same time, they are also in tandem with each other in the classroom. So actually, how teaching is done, how much of it is absorbed, and what really is happening in the classroom in terms of teaching, these are areas on which we can all comfortably assume that there is going to be a lot of gap. And this doesn't automatically fit in with each other all the time. Of course, we as teachers try to ensure that what we teach is directly translated. Ultimately, teaching processes used to attain the objective of transfer of knowledge and skill. So that is something that we want, but that is not something that obviously and directly happens because of the teaching process. So in this context, I would like to bring out some points. And to start with, I would like to start with can we have the third slide, please? I would like to start with a little story. This story, although not related to direct classroom teaching, but it depicts actually the consequences of teaching. So I thought it would be a good point to start with. There was this man who was very concerned about his little son who was growing up. He didn't want him to fall into bad ways, and knowing that the world was going in a certain way, he thought he should teach his son why alcohol is bad. So one day what he did, he took a glass of alcohol and he collected some worms from the garden. Then he called his son and he demonstrated to him that as soon as the worms were put in the alcohol glass, the worms died. So he told the son, you see, how bad is alcohol? You must remember this. Never ever take alcohol. You know, it kills. Having thought that he had done his job, he forgot and the years went by. One night, the child came back dead drunk. The father was shocked. He thought, I taught him and I actually demonstrated what better way of teaching. I showed him why alcoholism is bad. So in the morning, he asked his son, look, beta, I told you not to have alcohol. What happened? So the son, in a very nonchalant manner, told the father, oh, don't worry, father. I had worms in my stomach and therefore I had to have alcohol. That is why I had. Why are you worried? So you see, what we propose to teach, what we propose to convey is not necessarily what is actually absorbed by the student or the learner. This is a very crucial starting point from which I would like to begin today. Can we have the next slide, please? So what I thought was I would do for this basic talk is I want to take it in two parallel directions. One, of course, I will like to talk on the issues of teaching practices and what we are doing today. What are the understandings that have been brought to us through various researches in this area. At the same time, I'm also using this opportunity to actually demonstrate certain data collection techniques. So what I would request you all to do is we are going to have a couple of questions that I'm going to be asking as we go along. And please answer those questions in the chat boxes. Your answers will help me do my work better. So I request an active participation on your side. Kindly answer the questions. The first question that I want to bring to you is, Shankar Pillai. It's a very common name in South India. So Shankaran Pillai, an engineer from Bangalore, he cleared the UPSC exams. And when he did that, he was called for the interview in Delhi. All the way, he went to Delhi. And there in the interview, the first question he was asked is, you have come all the way from Bangalore, Mr. Pillai? He said, yes. The next question he asked was, so what is closer, the moon or Bangalore? This was Shankaran Pillai with 3 or 4 years of hard work trying to clear the GST, went all the way to Bangalore. And there, the first question is, which is closer, the moon or Bangalore? So what do you think he said? If you haven't heard this joke before, I tell you what he said. He said the moon. Can you all please answer this question? What do you think is closer, Bangalore or the moon? Kindly drop your answers in the chat box. We will come to the answer later. I will move on from here. It's basically, can we have the next slide? Here we want to discuss the context of higher education. Higher education, as we all know, is a very abstract body of knowledge involving purposive teaching by use of various techniques and methods in a structured manner. A body of formalized knowledge supposedly transferred to the learners, and even the ability or the absorption capacity of the learners is tested, and at the end of it, this entire process, a minimum cutoff is decided by view of examinations, by which in this process we say that whether a certain set of students are capably absorbing the said knowledge or not, or have they achieved the required efficiency level in that said system. So this is the next slide, please. So the context of higher education, as you can see, is very, very abstract, and it has a very strict and structured process of doing it. This process is where the boundaries of the curriculum are very well defined. The teaching and the transfer of knowledge is done in, again, very defined manner and in very purposive style, where the purpose is only the transmission of the said knowledge, and also by testing, we ensure or we certify certain people as having become experts in that particular body of knowledge. So it is a very structured and organized pattern. This is to bring to your notice that there may be a lot of people out there who have not gone through the system, but they may be more knowledgeable. But that is not a point of a discussion here. What we are trying to talk about are the basic practices used in these structured organizations and institutions for the transfer of very specific knowledge and skills. So although these two may seem, the transfer of knowledge, matlab teaching and learning, although these two may seem as the same things because the distinction is very difficult to make, but actually they are not the same things. Therefore, I just demonstrated to you through the source story that what we attempt to teach may not necessarily be what is received by the audience. And therefore, what happens is there is always a gap between the knowledge and between the learning. And therefore, the practice of teaching becomes all the more important. How we practice teaching, what are the tools and techniques that we use for this practice of teaching, is important in ensuring that the gap between the teaching and learning is reduced or minimized. It can never be zero. That, of course, we know. But at the same time, we try to ensure that it can at least be maximized. So a lot of data and a lot of research has already gone in here, and you can find that the techniques and practices that we are using today are increasingly attuned to the research outputs, or they are evidence-based in terms of the practices that we may want to use. Another thing that makes a big difference over here is the integration of these institutions of teaching with the wider society. Market and the market forces are a very prominent player in this. And especially, I'm just not talking about the university systems as such, where the private universities and other such organizations come in. That is not the purpose of my discussion. I'm saying that the market decides in a major market system is a very prominent player.
Sorry to
Sorry?
interrupt, ma'am. There is a minor network issue from your side.
I actually have network over here. I'm not audible, is it?
And now you are audible. Earlier,
Okay.
your voice broke.
Okay. So the market tends to decide not only what is the body of academic knowledge, it also decides how, when, where these systems will get transferred and what will be it used for. It is increasingly becoming more and more important. And for this, we can give umpteen examples. For example, I could discuss the invention of LED. LEDs have been around, or the technology of LED has been around for more than 50 years now. But it has come into the markets only in the last 10 years. Why? It's not because the system of knowledge or system of teaching was not there. It was already there in curriculums also. But LEDs were not there in the market because the market forces to maximize the profit ensured that it did not come in as a major system of lighting. In the same way, we can look at a lot of other such instances where we know certain things not to be very good. For example, in the use of plastic. But we know that plastic research is not only for controlling the kind of inventions or the use of, sorry, some disturbance. Plastic and the use of plastic is not very good. This is what the environmentalists have been telling us for almost 50 years now. But that doesn't stop the research on plastic. It doesn't stop the multiple and varied uses of plastic, which we are continuously researching on and which is continuously coming into the market. So the point that I'm trying to make is teaching and learning ultimately is a part of this social milieu, and therefore it gets impacted by the market and the economic forces of the times that we live in. Another part, again, a continuity or a tandem of this axillary that I have just placed before you is also that there are other social systems. For example, the political systems, the cultural systems, all these tend to impact how the practice of teaching is done in any academic environment. Having said this, this is the context on which I would like to place my talk. We know that, can we go to the next slide, please? There are three components, broadly speaking. The first is the teacher, the second is the medium of teaching, and the third is the learner. These are the three contexts under which we will have to see the teaching practices. Teacher, basically, we will look at it in the points of these four skill requirements. One is knowledge, the other is the craft or the skills uses for this craft, behavior, and the techniques used. And if you look at the learner, then the learner will receive the knowledge on the basis of his aptitude, on the basis of his or her previous learning, behavior, and dedication. So between these two, the teacher and the learner, there is the practice of teaching, which comes through a medium. This medium may be differently used by different people, and broadly speaking, it is classroom, or it is the work practice where learn by doing, or it could be simulation. In simulation, which is an increasingly used technology now, and it's become a completely artificial intelligence fed area of learning. And then, of course, there is technology. Now, technology is starting from books to now artificial intelligence. All of it is ultimately, it comes down into technology. So these are the basic mediums through which we will see how knowledge is transferred, or how the practice of teaching effectively transfers the knowledge. So what is practice of teaching? Practice of teaching are those basic methods or basic procedures used by teachers to transfer the body of knowledge to the students. And therefore, the medium of this transfer becomes very, very important to the practice of teaching. Next slide, please. In understanding this practice of teaching, we also need to look at the nature of teaching and learning. Now, broadly speaking, there are two schools. One is the direct transmission view, and the other is the constructivist view or the postmodern view. These two are a little different in terms of their orientation as to what they think is the best way to practice teaching. The direct transmission view assumes the teacher to have a very, very important and pivotal role in communicating knowledge. The idea is that this be done in a clear, structured, and methodical way in a set environment. Most of us, starting from schools to colleges, we have experienced this understanding of direct transmission, wherein we directly sat in certain classes where knowledge was transferred to us through the teacher via direct teaching, using no matter what. It could be some technical tools that the teacher used, or it could be plain lecture system. Either way, the idea of this transmission was that teacher would explain to the students and the student would listen to the lectures or reading through the classes. It would absorb the component of knowledge directly. So this is known as the direct transmission view. And the other is the constructivist view. The constructivist view believes that teaching cannot really be done. You cannot teach anyone, but you can learn, and everybody can learn. So the idea of the constructive view is to enhance the learning capacities of the student. So it basically emphasizes emphasizes the facilitation of students and their inquiries, and to prefer to give students the chance to develop solutions to problems on their own, so that they are able to enhance their own thinking and problem solving aptitudes. So basically, through the subject, ultimately, they try to develop their own critical understanding of the subject and how they can solve problems through it. So by that method, they try to learn. So the practice of teaching in both these methods are slightly different. In direct transmission, it is like what we did in school. Rotary method is one of the most prominently used methods, where a body of knowledge is familiarized to a set of students or a set of learners. And by familiarization, by memorization, and then by use of those concepts, one expects to gain an expertise on the set body of knowledge. Whereas in the constructivist view, familiarization is done by medium of a concept or medium of a problem. So there is a slight difference in how and why they approach. The ultimate abilities are different, the ultimate outcomes are different in both the methods. But for us, most of our teaching systems focus even today on the direct transmission view. And you will find that although we take some of the constructivist criticism of the direct transmission view, and we have tried to expand our teaching practices in ways in which we allow the student to enhance their critical thinking abilities and the abilities to understand the topics via actually doing things, by experiential learning. However, we continue to remain mostly under the direct transmission view. Can I have the next slide, please? To demonstrate the challenges of this, I would like to share with you a small question. You can see the lines, they're going in two directions. There was a train which was signaled to go right. But as the driver saw, he saw there were some children trying to cross the rail tracks. And if he wanted to save those children, he would have to take the left rail track. But the signal was showing him right. He had to go left. Why? Because he wanted to save the children. But on the left, there were certain workers. Here, on the right, there were some 20 odd children trying to cross the track. On the left, let us assume there were two workers, two men working on the rail tracks. Now, what should the driver do? Should he go right or should he go left? Again, please send me your reactions to this, your answer to this question in the chat box. What should the train driver do? Should he go right or should he go left? Can I have the next slide, please? The train has to go right, but the driver notices small child on the track. The left rack is closed for repairs, and 2 men are working. What should the driver do? I am adding to the small child. I'm saying there may be 20 children trying to cross. How would you judge? Let's say there were 20 children on the right and there are 2 workers on the left. Which side would you go to? Can we go to the next slide, please? Please type in your answers. We will take the answers at the end of the session where we will try and answer all these questions. So let us look at the teaching processes that we use usually in our classrooms. These are processes that we are all familiar with: collaborative learning, where the teacher and the students together collaborate to learn. For example, you may write out a small project, and in doing that, both the teacher as well as the learner, they try to learn the associated factors with that practice. They can be technology-based learning. Technology-based learning meaning all these IT technologies that we have today, all the internet learning, all the new technologies that we use today. For example, Zoom. It was a big help, especially during the times of COVID, where virtual classes could be held at a time when face-to-face classes were not there. Also, you would find that there are a lot of online programs that you can use today, which are again technology-based, and they attempt to transfer a basic knowledge skill through some technological mediums. There are also a lot of toys or gaming apps which give you, gaming itself has become a big industry today for learning also. So it is one way of, again, teaching. Yeah, it is a part of the practice of teaching that is used in many institutions nowadays.
Hello.
Then there is this, hello. Then there is this technique of flipped classroom strategy. Flipped classroom strategy is not new, although what usually is done in this, the student is previously given material to read and understand. So he comes to the classroom with a basic understanding of the subject, and then both the teacher and the entire class work on those concepts and they try to take it further. So instead of the first instructor giving questions, giving an instruction or a lecture and then taking questions, here it goes the other way. The class is first given material through which some learning is done, and then they come back with questions to the class, and through the question session, answer session, more learning comes out of it. Now, another learning technique is immersive learning. Immersive learning is, the kind of learning we do when we do some projects, or where we, especially in social sciences, where we are given a social situation, or where a action research project is undertaken, where actually while doing the project, one turns to learn from the project and becomes a part of the project. For example, if one wants to learn as to what is the experience of a scheduled caste person in a bus, so perhaps one way of immersive learning would be to actually move with a scheduled caste person on different buses in different areas of the locality. That would give you an idea as to how the caste actually plays out in a public space, for example, transport. So that this kind of techniques are known as immersive learning techniques. These, of course, are very, very qualitative in nature and very, very time consuming. So not much of it is actually used in modern day university teachings. The other one, which is actually, this one is very popularly used, which is virtual tours and interactive forums. These are used because they give a broadened and a bigger group to learn from. In a classroom where a learning group would learn only maybe from one teacher and from the learning options that the teacher offers, if you were to do it in a virtual tour and an interactive forum, then everybody learns from everybody. And there could be a multiple group of people giving inputs to that interactive forum. So the learning becomes multidimensional, number one, and also the people who are doing, who are becoming a part of the teaching practice also become from a varied background. And because of which it is seen that in certain cases, the overall learning aspects, your learning outcomes are improved. Other way is of mixing a variety of instructional strategies. This is what usually we are doing, especially under the new education policy and new patterns of teaching that we are following, where we have assignments, we have projects, we have some seminars, conferences, all of it is brought together. So other than direct teaching, we are supplementing it with a lot of such indirect materials of teaching, where we are giving them experiential learning as well as learning through various projects, etc. So a mixed variety of instructional strategies are more commonly used nowadays. Another method which is practiced very commonly is dividing the content into short chunks. This pattern is usually followed by, you will find people who are in extension education or who go in for long distant learning modes. Over there, it is more popular to divide it into very, very small chunks, because those small chunks can be absorbed easily. And once the basic material, basic concepts are understood, it becomes easier to establish correlation between those concepts. So by breaking, like one says, if you want to do a long journey, it starts with a single small step. So this is the basic idea, where it is done by dividing the content into very, very short chunks. And by dividing the content, the teaching process itself becomes, although very long and elaborate, but the learning outcomes are seen to be better. So these are the basic practices that we find which are used in most of the teaching methods in higher education, where any one or maybe more than one is used. Can we go to the next slide, please? I have another question. Now, this is a basic maths problem that I picked up from one of those books that I have. If I have 10 oranges in one hand and 8 apples in the other, what do I have in all? This was a question which was put by the class teacher to the students. There were a small group of students in school who were given this basic maths problem. What do you think was the answer? Again, may I request some answers on the chat box, please? When we ask such direct questions and we look at the answers that we receive from the learner group, you'll be surprised as to the varied ways in which such questions can be answered. Most of us think that it is a very straight question and it requires a straight answer, because that is how academics is organized and structured. But that is not how the learner perceives it. And such straight questions invariably show us this gap that exists between the learners and the teachers. And therefore, it becomes a very, very important component of the teaching practice, where we try to identify the various issues or various components of lag. And once we are able to identify them, we can find means to address those answers. Can I have the next slide, please? So in the light of the various teaching practices that are followed in higher education, let us look at the skills required by teachers. According to European Union, they have given out basically 3 skills which they think are very important for all teachers to have. The first one is working with others. Second is working with knowledge, technology, and information. Now this, I think, working with knowledge, technology, and information is something we all expect that a teacher should know, and this is what a teacher should be working with. But do we expect working with others as a part of our teaching practice? Some of us are not so obviously involved in this aspect of learning. And the third part is working in and with society. Now, the skill required by teachers as expressed by European Union is not a standard which is very frequently adopted all over the world. However, not even European countries, just to bring it to your notice, except this, and I have worked around it. However, there are certain leading groups in higher education and leading funding agencies that agree with the European Union, and they think that these should be the things, or these should be the qualities which should be encouraged in the teachers, so that it becomes a part of the practice of teaching. Now, working with others, insofar as it's about working with students, it is understood and it is obviously a part of our work as teachers. But working in and with society becomes more challenging when you look at the strict organization of institutions of learning and teaching. For instance, if you were to look at the university, we know that in the university, working in and with society has limitations. We can only take it insofar as we are taking as expert lectures coming in, or we are sending out our students to other institutions for internships and projects. But beyond that, working in and with society is something that we are not really able to go around with. It is not possible in our existing situations. And therefore, if this is one value that we want to take forward, then we will have to restructure how academics works in our country in terms of the outputs that we expect from it. Can I have the next slide, please? So basically, working with students is something that we all agree with. Now, how do you work with students? What are the basic pedagogical tricks that one has? So, which obviously becomes a part of the practice of teaching. So one thing that really helps in this area is to have a very clearly defined learning goals. Of course, it is there in the curriculum. Curriculum is a broad area, but when you teach in class, then if you are able to give the learners clear attributes of learning, which will be expected of him, which will be evaluated, it becomes a lot easier. So having clearly defined goals in terms of learning helps improve the practice of teaching. Another area is learner engagement. We all know that if somebody doesn't want to eat, can you force that person to eat? There is an old saying, you can only take the horse to water. You cannot force the horse to drink. And the same with knowledge. A teacher can only show the learner or demonstrate to the learner a certain academic concept, but you cannot force the learner to learn. It is the learner who has to be ready to absorb that knowledge. The learner has to engage with the system in trying to learn. Only then teaching becomes possible. So actually this becomes a two-way process. It is the teacher who has to be willing to teach, and it is the learner who has to be willing to learn. And between the two of them, it is their engagement. More the engagement, better the chances of learning. Third is a feedback system. A good feedback system is an important part of the practice of teaching. The feedback system should be more and more elaborate and broken down to small and continuous process. Instead of having simply 3 or 4 feedbacks, if we are able to give the student daily informal feedbacks in the interactions in classes, it helps them learn better, because ultimately teaching and learning are a social interaction. And if the social interaction is congenial, it helps better learning. Another aspect that helps in this situation is language skills. If the teacher has good language skills, if the teacher is able to explain concepts in the terminology, in the language uses of the student, then the absorption of that concept becomes easier. We hear this especially when we hear about the entire discourse in new education policy on Matribhasha, where they say that actually, especially in primary levels, teaching should be done in the mother tongue. Now, this has basic advantages because mother tongue is understood better. And there is intuitive understanding in mother tongue, which may not be in another language. Therefore, we find that language skills, be it mother tongue or be it any other language, at whatever stage, language skills become very, very important for the learner. Again, using multiple learning strategies and mediums is always helpful. Learning one concept from one point of view doesn't always help, because in social situations where actually the concept will be used, it can come in multiple ways. And to be able to actually apply the knowledge at that point of time, one needs to be able to understand the knowledge in a multi-dimensional strategy and from a multi-dimensional point of view. So having multiple learning strategies helps to grasp certain concepts from different point of views, and therefore it becomes a better practice of teaching. Another point that is important over here is teaching practices should involve the teacher and the learner as a team. When we work as teams, teacher and learner, when a group of learners and a group of teachers, teacher learner with various institutions, when we work as teams, overall learning outcomes are better, because a lot of psychological issues are easily handled and settled at that point of time. Also, multiple differential learning abilities are better addressed when we work as teams. So this is one method by which the teaching practice can be enhanced. Another method is to give learning models. For any concept, if we are able to give live examples and we can help them work out those live examples, it becomes easier to understand. Models, especially in sciences and even law to an extent, uses the models of learning. And these models of learning are from examples or actual applications or actual social situations, or they may be even abstract, wherein objects may be used as models to encourage the understanding of a certain concept. But this is no doubt, this is a very good practice which enhances overall learning outcomes and therefore should be necessarily addressed as a teaching practice. Another aspect is learning from experience. By this, we can mean in various ways. One, when their own experience of the basic concept and how they understand it, how much of it are they able to grasp, starting from the first encounter with the concept and going to the levels of examination. That is one part of experience learning. And the other part of experience learning is from actual social situations, again, from where they can learn. Another thing which comes to help in maintaining good teaching practices is maintaining research informed and up-to-date teaching practices. Increasingly, we are seeing that we have moved into digital technologies that try to address and they try to inform and learn from the research information that is out there and try to improve our teaching techniques through that. Another part that is affected is one size fits all is not true. We all know that. But what do we do to address our teaching practices that these differences of learning abilities and learning outcomes are addressed? Model which is usually very popular nowadays is the Plan to Do Study Act, in which learners are themselves expected to monitor their own learnings and plan their own learnings and how they want to do, where they want help. Of course, this is helpful, but this is requiring a learner that is very, very motivated and a learner that is experienced or has some previous knowledge in a area of learning. So higher education maybe can have these kind of models where we do Plan, Do, Study, Act. Plan your studies, do it, actually work it out, then study what you studied, how it works, where it can be applied, and then act on that knowledge and again go back to Plan, Do, Study, Act. So this is one cycle which is especially social sciences uses this pattern, and we encourage our learners and it becomes a part of our teaching practice. Integrating technology-based learning, of course, this is something very familiar to all of us, and we are trying to use more and more of technology where, other than classroom teachings, additional resources in terms of not only written material, in terms of PPT, in terms of films, in terms of quizzes, in terms of other such resources which are generated and transferred through IT. And the purpose is to enhance the learning experience and to enhance the learning outcomes of the learners. But most important amongst all these, I would say, is emphasizing behavioral management in our teaching practices. If we don't address behavioral issues of learners, the learning outcomes will necessarily be limited. For example, you may find learners who are very quick to pick up the academic content, but they may fail in terms of the ethical or the value-based component. There may be others who are very good at the abstract or the theoretical aspects, but they may fail when it comes to the practical aspects. So learning is multidimensional. So is the need to manage behavioral patterns, that all these multidimensional aspects of learnings can be addressed. Can we move to the next slide, please? Again, I have a question for you. As is obvious in the question, how many grammatical mistakes did you notice in this presentation? Please do answer in the chat box. I am asking you to answer this because as we end towards our presentation today, we will be able to take those answers. There is no other means by which we can actually do it online. So please take 2 minutes and answer this. Do you remember any mistakes that I made? I'm asking about the whole presentation, please, not just now. This is one of the last questions. Okay, so I think I will move on to the next slide, please. We will come back to this later. Can we go to the next slide? The learning environments. Okay. So, like you know, all this discussion that we have had so far, we have been talking about the various methods that are used and which are a part of the teaching practices used in higher education mostly. They are clearly, very objectively focused on the teacher and the learner and the medium by which this is done. But the teacher and the learner themselves are a bag of emotions, are a bag of previous experiences, are a bag of basic attitudes and aptitudes towards learning. So although we may say that teaching learning is an objective process, but actually in practice, it is not an objective process. It is a process which is very, very complex, which is very, very oriented to the psychological situations and conditions of both the teacher as well as the learner. And therefore, the human factor in this entire process becomes exceptionally important. But this is important not only in terms of their psychological conditions, it is also important because the people and the infrastructures that make up the teaching practices, they are interwoven. They are interwoven in the sense that you will find that the teacher is ultimately a part of some institution. That institution will have its own objectives, and those objectives will be binding on the teacher to an extent. And therefore, what really happens in a classroom or that really happens in a teaching practice is not just the transfer of knowledge. It is the transfer of knowledge under the institutional value and cultural orientations. This is very important in the sense it attunes the teacher to work in a certain way. And therefore, we may use terminologies like student-centric or teacher-centric approach. All these approaches ultimately will be limited by the institutional capacity to promote these approaches. And therefore, the infrastructure, the people, the materials that make up the teaching practices are very, very important. And the structure in which these are enmeshed becomes limiting in the sense of the way the teaching practice is actually practiced in classrooms. One question that mostly people ask is, what are teachers doing? We think that teachers are only reading and coming and delivering in class. But no, actually, when you look at the life of teachers, you will see that they are doing a whole lot of other things other than just classroom teaching. They may be into administrative aspects, they may be into governance aspects, they may be into data management and other such situations, even in terms of the class. So actually what a teacher does is far more than just teaching. And all these other aspects, they impinge on the quality of teaching practices that are actually practiced. Another aspect is that there is a network of relationships in this entire gambit. When there is a teacher and when there is a learner, in between them, they are mediated not just by the mediums of learning, but also by the medium of the society in which this is practiced. And these complex and changing relationships, they tend to impact the learning outcomes. They may, in terms of being positive, they may actually be very, very supportive to the learner, and they may support. Therefore, we have these systems of mentoring. They may support way beyond the actual curriculum required by the institution. So the mentoring may actually go into actual life skills. You may find that some teachers are able to attune the students that way. But again, in other aspects, there may be certain specific requirements of some students which may fall beyond the capacity of the organization to address. And therefore, those people may find that they get left over. So those who are able to evolve dynamic relationships with the teacher and the teaching institutions are able to achieve better learning outcomes as compared to those who are not able to do. And these new networks of relationships that are found, it has been seen that they go way beyond the actual learning time that a learner may spend with an institution. So the academic environment under which all this is done becomes very, very crucial, and it is critical for the learning outcomes and also the teaching practice, because it not only limits, it also in a way enhances itself way beyond the actual learning process. So therefore it becomes important. And when such relationships are established, we find that the students are able to learn more and way beyond the curriculum. So that is a situation where most institutions would like to be in and would like to move to. Can we have the next slide, please? So I just want to briefly touch on the learner's readiness, because this is an aspect that impinges the teaching practices. Now, the teaching practices that we have, basically, they are attuned to the entire and oriented to the entire class as a group. But as individuals, some may have exceptional talent, may be qualified to absorb and learn much more than the others, while some may have lower than the average abilities to absorb, some may be of average. So most of the teaching that is done, or the teaching practices, they target the average, and then they try to address the needs of the above average as well as below average. So both require completely different techniques, but most important is the mindset that underlines all these approaches. If in the mindset of the teacher, of the institution, and of the student, it is that a better learning outcomes are possible, that growth is possible, If this is in the mindset, then automatically it has been seen that the learning outcomes are better. It can help students understand the values of effort. Mostly students are given activities which they do not want to see, or they find it very difficult to engage with. But if the mindset of the student is of a growth mindset, then even if the problem is very challenging, they will try to address it, and they will try to improve their learning outcomes by trying. The very attempt in itself will help them to do better. So basically, it is the growth of the mindset which is important, and that is what one should address as and when we start our teaching practices. Then the learning context, the context under which learning is done. I have already given an example. I don't want to indulge on this any further. Another factor that is very important is previous learning. We have seen that the average learner and the fast or more talented learners, the basic difference is in previous learning. And previous learning is not just conceptual learning. It is also the previously acquired skills of learning that make a difference. So if there is previous learning in terms of content, in terms of skill, obviously the learner readiness is way better than for one who doesn't have this. The same thing is true for learning skills in general. Learning skills require not just aptitude, not just discipline and dedication. It also requires a basic language skill, the ability to comprehend, and a critical thinking or application skill. So all these skills are important when it comes to learning skills. And of course, behavioral and psychological traits. For example, a teacher is expected to demonstrate the trait of leadership. As a good leader, a teacher should demonstrate his or her ability to not only orient the class in a certain direction, but also to encourage teamwork and the ability to bring the team together, to control factors that create disharmony in class and therefore disrupt the learnings, and all these aspects which we will be discussing more in the next slide. But here basically I would just like to point out, it is the behavioral and psychological traits of both the teacher as well as learners which need to be addressed in the practice of teaching. And of course, important are the personal objectives. What are the objectives of the learner? What is the objective of the teacher? If both are not in tune, it is very difficult to enhance the learning outcomes. And it is challenging for the teaching practices to ensure that both the objectives, the objective of the learner should be to learn and the objective of the teacher should be to teach. So it is the teaching practices that are institutionally confirmed to that ensure that personal objectives of both ends are common. Can we go to the next slide, please? So one way of looking at this is basically, let us see, if you were to ask this question, what do good teachers actually do? So good teachers, you will find, they associate with the students. Some even know their families and they know the social situations those families are. They know how they can encourage the student to do better, how they can encourage the family to give a more conducive environment of learning to the student, and so on and so forth. Of course, I understand the limitations of this, but what we are talking about is the ideal theoretical situation. How much and what can actually come down to teaching practice may be a different issue, but it is an issue by which we can all achieve more, and at least we can plan to do better. The other part is planning and innovation in their teachings. If we are planning our teaching, if we are planning what is the final message that we want to give out, what are the techniques that we will use to enhance that message, and if we are able to use innovative techniques, it naturally catches the attention of the taught. And therefore, the practice of teaching, whose purpose is to enhance the learning outcomes ultimately, it can do better. So we need to, of course, good teachers, they do this. They consider and address the differential needs of students. A good teacher will know all the students, and a good teacher will know the varying capacities of the students. Also, the good teacher will be able to point out to the students the exact areas in which they may be lacking and how they can do better. If you remember in schools, that is what we had parents teachers meetings for. But those meetings may not be a very formal structure. But actually what happens is class is more informal and direct feedback can be got to students. And classrooms, therefore, interaction with the teacher, therefore, becomes important feedback system for the learners. And thus this feedback, when it is attuned to the clear goal of learning, it helps to ensure the better learning outcomes. Also, all these, of course, like we know, the more the discussion, the better the learning. And therefore, a teacher should encourage discussions, and good teachers do that. Not only discussions, they encourage multiple problem solving opportunities. They ensure multiple live examples, and they are able to clearly direct these examples to the exact learning outcomes that are expected. So basically, the practice of involved teaching is what helps in the practice of teaching. So teaching practices ultimately requires this one thing. If this one thing is there, most of others will automatically fall in place, which is involved teaching. Can we go to the next one, please? So this is my final question to you. What are the words of you'll remember from this session? If there are some words that stand out in your memory from all that I have said so far, please type it in. I'll give you 2 minutes for that. Can we now go to the next slide, please? We hear these terminologies mostly in most of talks of NEP, most of the talks of World Bank and other educational institutions. We hear this in UNICEF when they talk about education. We are all talking about impactful education incentives. By this, they basically mean an education that helps a person impact or become a game changer or become a change maker. That means impact their life situations in positive ways and take society further in positive ways. So ultimately, the role of education we are seeing is being far expanded from what we had started out with. There was a time when education was mostly about rote learning, about specific things. And through that method of rote learning, it was about gaining some critical thinking abilities. But from there on, it has moved to situations of not just critical thinking or a critical mindset. It is not just about application of knowledge. It is come to believe that education should be impactful. That means it should be a type of education that helps the learner not only master the concepts, but using the concept impactfully change their own circumstances, the social circumstances, and the circumstances of whatever organization they are working with. So it has gone far beyond the limited aspirations of what education had in the beginning of this century, perhaps. Also, learning benefits everyone. This is a basic understanding that we have all come to accept. Anybody with a little bit of learning also, you will see it changes their worldview. It changes the way they approach society, the way they approach each other, the way they approach everyday life problems. So learning benefits, and therefore it is believed that everybody should have the ability to learn and the opportunity to learn. Both go hand in hand, the ability to learn and the opportunity to learn, because human well-being correlates to education. It is demonstrated by research again and again that human well-being is better with education. These are two variables. When taken together, it is seen that more the education, the well-being is relatively higher. And if you look at all the world reports, you will find that all developmental reports, they take education as a basic factor, because this is the understanding of research that well-being is directly connected to education. And therefore, if we are able to give good education, there will be more well-being in society. So that is one aspect that is increasingly coming to us. Can we go to the next? So before I conclude, this is the last slide, I would like to go back to the questions that I had first asked you. Would you want answers? Yes, no? My first question was, I gave you that example. My first question was about Shankar Pillai, an engineer from Bangalore. So obviously, Shankar Pillai said the moon. And when he was asked by the board, why the moon? His answer was simple. He said, I can see the moon from Delhi, but I can't see Bangalore. So obviously the moon is closer. We all know in the UPSC board, they are not attempting to look at your knowledge only. They are specifically trying to put pressure on you and trying to, through that pressure, evaluate other psychological circumstances. So Shankar Pillai, obviously understanding that, gave an answer, and he gave a rationale to support that answer. Another question that I would ask is, if you remember the slide in which a child was holding a worm, can you tell me where did I borrow that image from? It was very clearly marked on that image. Can you please put it in the chat box? Which website was that image taken from? Let's go to question number 2. This was the train question. The train question, if you remember, I told you that the signal was for the right, where there were children. The choice, the dilemma, the driver was in. He had to choose between going right and killing 20 students or going left and killing the workers. What should his answer be? If he went left, he would kill those workers who were only doing their duty. He would be overriding the instructions given to him and therefore maybe jeopardizing the life of all the people in the train. If he went right, he would definitely kill the children, because the children, being small, obviously did not have the capacity of running out of the way and going to a distant, safe situation before the train arrived. So the answer to this could be anything. This is only an ethical question. The ethical question is to show you the real life dilemmas that any teacher or any teaching situation can have. And if these questions come to you, what will be the answer? In academics, we are expected to give a structured answer. And the structured answer, meaning kill the children, save the workers, may not necessarily be a very right choice to make. It can be argued otherwise. About the question of apples, the answer given by children was, If I had 10 oranges in one hand and 8 apples in the other, what do I have? A student wrote in saying, big hands. And the answer is correct. So basically, it is about out of the box thinking. It is about going with the knowledge one already has instead of just looking at how it can be done. About the grammatical mistake that I asked you, now if you go back to the first question, Shankar Pillai, if you go back, you will see I have purposely written, she went to Delhi. Shankar Pillai is a male, and I purposely wrote over there that she was asked which is closer, Bangalore or me. Okay. Another question that I just asked you was about which was the site from which I had picked out the picture of the child with worms. I haven't received any answer on this from what I can see. Somebody is just writing iStock. It is Dreams Time and it is clearly written on the picture. I asked you this just to demonstrate to you your attention span, how observant you are. As teachers, we are expected to be very, very observant. We are expected to notice. Here, it was just a thing. It was an objective reality. It could be psychological realities also. So the teaching practice would require ultimately a human being that is sensitive to the human being at the other end and who is able to, from intuitive understanding of situations, use techniques and principles to reach out to the other person, to help that other person learn better. So that was the purpose of my discussion here today. I'm open to questions. Like they say, there's a very old saying that if you want to be anything in England, be a statesman, because that is the most respected out there. In America, be a book writer. They are the most celebrated and popular people, where Americans love to read. And if you want to be something in India, be a saint. Who is a saint? A saint is a life teacher. He teaches you not just right from wrong, from little stories of our texts. They transfer to you life situations and the choices one would make in those life situations. They help you understand and create thinking patterns that may be socially acceptable. So therefore, this idea, thank you so much for this very patient hearing. And thank you for all the answers that you put in. I don't give myself good scores because I found very few answers coming in on the chat box. I expected more. We are something like 47 people here. So perhaps a few more answers would be welcome. But nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such an insightful session and guiding us on how we can improve our teaching practices by adopting multidimensional approaches. And if the participants have any question, they can ask ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Yeah. My question is, how long will it take to measure the learning outcomes of the students?
For this, actually, there are a lot of tests which are available. And if you are into pedagogy, you will know those tests are freely available online also. So there is nothing like how long. Learning is a process. And the purpose is to make it a continuous process. So the idea is to break it up into small bits, small chunks, which are more easily handled by the learner, and evaluate each chunk. But while evaluating each chunk, one must also, I believe, try to evaluate the connection between various chunks, whether that is also going through correctly or not. Otherwise, we will have a boy drinking alcohol and saying he wanted to kill worms. So that continuity of purpose must always be there. Thank you.
Any other question by the participants?
Somebody's asked for the PPT in the chat box. The PPT is already there with you. It's out there and it's open for anyone who wants. They're welcome to take it from the organizers. So thank you to the organizers for this wonderful opportunity and to you all for a patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. For our second session today, we have Mr. Gaurav Gulati.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Hello. Ma'am, yesterday's feedback, it is not uploaded, I think. DNEA or assignment.
Okay,
वगैरह, I was trying to.
for the second session, we have a discussion. So you can ask
Acha.
her any doubts you have.
Okay. Thank you.
It will be general discussion. For our second session today, we have Mr. Gaurav Gulati, Advocate, Allahabad High Court, and participants can ask him any doubt they have regarding the assignments and other things.
So a very good afternoon, good evening to everyone present here today. So this is the third day we are having today of this 15 days online refresher course. So I will be dealing with certain discussions which the participants require for the program which we are heading towards. So the stage is open to all of you. You can start. First, we'll have the questions out. Whoever has a question regarding the sessions, regarding the assignments or anything. So we'll just start with that, and then we'll have a discussion over certain other things.
Good evening, sir. Is it possible to have the schedule for the 15 days program?
Ma'am, we have already shared the schedule on the mail, but if not have been received by the participants, we'll today by evening we'll be sharing the complete schedule. The complete schedule on the WhatsApp groups. And yes, there were certain queries which I have been seeing through my office as well as from our organizing team that the feedback forms have yet not been uploaded. So tomorrow by 10 o'clock, all the feedback forms will be available, and they will be available on my WhatsApp as well as on my e-class. So either way, you can submit your feedbacks either from my e-class or from the WhatsApp group. The links of the feedback forms will be the same. All the recorded videos will be uploaded by today midnight at my e-class portal. And from the coming weekend, we will be giving all the we will be starting giving the assignments as well as the project and the MCQs from the coming Saturday. Okay. And I'll just check. There are certain other queries which have been like just coming. Can you share the feedback links for the first and second day? I've already spoken on that the feedback forms will be given to you by tomorrow 10 o'clock. So you guys have to wait till 10 o'clock so that the feedback forms will be available. Any other?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, sir.
Ma'am, it will be better if the participants do not mind if we can have the cameras on so that I can also see whom I'm talking to.
Okay, sir. Excuse me, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, sir. Actually, yesterday I could not attend the classes because I could not get the proper link. That is not in email, and also I have not added in the WhatsApp group. Due to that, I could not attend. Totally, I have not linked. So today only I have got that that you have added me, and then only I have got the information. So for that issue, I have mailed whatever the mail in the research group, in the refresher group, I have made. But they have not replied anything. That is the problem, whatever I have found.
So you've mailed it to us or to the GADTLC?
Okay, sir. That will be fine because that any message we could not reply from the refresher group.
Actually,
so that's
so
the problem.
I'll just do one thing. I'll just see whatever mails we have received from the participants. We'll try to get those mails replied back by 7 o'clock today. And those who have any problem, like if they want to see the recorded videos right now, right away, you can go to our Droid Penal Group page. We have a page on our YouTube. So you can directly go over there and check your videos of whatever videos which have been there on the, and if in case if the video is not uploaded on time, you can directly switch to Droid Penal Group's YouTube page, where you can get all the recorded videos, because all those recorded, because these are sessions are going live on YouTube, because we don't download these sessions, so that it directly goes to our portal.
Sir, we can also get the recording from My Class Academy also.
Both ways. You, if in case till the time this program is going for 15 days, all the videos will be available on your YouTube, and then only after 15 days, the videos will only be available on my e-class.
Okay, sir. That can be possible that whenever we have to complete assignment and project. That is on the basis on the sessions the question will come. But that's why I could not attend. I have just make that one query. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, ma'am. I guess Shweta Singh, madam, what about the assignments? Assignments, I've already told you that we will be uploading the assignments from Saturday itself, as well as first quiz will be there from Saturday itself. Then we have a question from Sangmitra Parihar, madam. When do we have to upload the pictures attending the session? Ma'am, you can upload the pictures after the program is over, and you can do it on the 15th day, or you can do it if you are a option B participant, then you can do it within 15 days from for the next 15 days, when you will be given the assignments time and all that. 2 days clips for lecture session. I've already told all the clips are there on the YouTube channel of Droid Penal Group, and in case there is any problem by today 7 o'clock or by midnight, all the videos will be uploaded over there. One more question is this, sir, about the photo submission, whether we have to upload screenshots of the photo taken. Ma'am, see, just go through the sample which has been given over there on my e-class about the photo. One photo you have to place it with the device, and one photo with your device, and another photo is your passport photo.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, there is a code. So I think it may be the code which is given in the e-class.
Yes, ma'am. Even I'll just I have the codes with me. Wait a second, ma'am. I'll just clear up your query on this codes. See, I'm just sharing it on the WhatsApp group, the codes which are given to all the participants. So I'll just check your WhatsApp group, all the participants, that have you all received the message from my side? And even I'm sharing one PPT, which will help you out in doing your assignments, submitting your assignments. Is that helpful? No, you don't have to upload photos of every day and every time. Every time you are attending the class, you just have to upload one photograph. How many quizzes will be there? Ma'am, there will be almost 4 quizzes, 10 questions each. How is our attendance being? Ma'am, whenever you'll be switching on to my e-class, the attendance will be marked on my e-class automatically. What is the assignment criteria for this FDP? Ma'am, there will be 3 assignments and 2 projects and 4 quizzes. Where to upload the duty leave permission? Ma'am, yes, a very good question coming from Mr. Sachin Joshi. Whoever is on the option A, they can submit their duty leave letters to the same email ID given on the brochure with the subject title duty leave. What is the difference between project and assignments? Assignments, these assignments will be based on your your day-to-day lectures and your teaching this thing. Whatever questions will be on the journal topics, whatever the topics the resource persons will be taking, and the assignments will be the project will be something wherein we will be sending you certain things like what we have been giving assignments are like, how do you plan your classes, how do you go up with your planning up your lesson plans and all that. These come under the project criteria. I guess there are same questions again and again. Yes, received. Okay, thank you. I could not see anything in my e-class portal. Yes, I have all, Mr. Sudeep, I have already spoken to you that there has nothing been uploaded on my e-class till now. From today itself, we will be starting up. We will start uploading the videos as well as assignments and feedback forms. Tomorrow by 10 o'clock, the feedback forms will be available on both the portals, which is WhatsApp group as well as your my e-class. Yes. Any other questions? Whatever queries you have, actually we have a lot of programs going on. So whatever queries are there, you drop a message on my the direct message to the admin. The number which I'll just tell you the numbers. I'll just share a number on the WhatsApp group. You can directly DM your queries so that that will be answered within like 5 to 7 hours. I'm just sharing the number. I've just shared the number on which you can just put your queries you have. Yesterday, I was attending the live session on Zoom, but forgot to log in my e-class, whether I would mark it. You can log in your e-class anytime. Tomorrow by 10 o'clock, you log in your e-class. All this thing for feedback forms will be there. Don't you worry about that. Please share everything in WhatsApp for easy access. Everything, whatever right now we are going through has been shared on my WhatsApp. So next, whatever details will be there, so we'll be sharing it. Passport photo and live session attending pic uploaded. Very good, sir. Any other queries? Anything which you feel like asking? Sudeep, if you can just go to my e-class and just open your this thing program which you are doing right now, which is 140 FDP. There you will find a sample of the this thing photograph. So you just download that, remove the photo which has already been there, and just put your photo. You can see there will be 2 photos. Accordingly, you post those photos and then upload it as it was being told to you. And I have shared the PPT wherein it is specifically on stepwise it is given how to do it. Wait a second, I'll just share all the links to the YouTube page. I'm just sharing with you the link of the. Wait a second. I've just shared with you the page link on the group. You can directly access to it and check all the videos are uploaded over there. Any other query, question, anything? Anything you want to just clear out right now? That will be better.
So I posted a question in the chat box. I hope you didn't notice it. That's about
Yeah,
whether.
I just got
Yeah, yeah.
possible to scores after assignment quiz and ma'am, for the assignments and projects, the scores will not be available over there itself. But yes, once you're doing your quiz, the scores will be there. The quiz scores will be there, and there will be 2 attempts of the quiz in case if you fail to, or because of some connectivity issues, if you cannot submit your quiz in a proper manner, there will be 2 attempts to the quiz. Anything else? Any other queries you have, you can just ask so that, or otherwise we can just wind up the session. Sir, I've already spoken about the assignments, but I'll again tell you there will be 3 assignments and 2 projects, and there will be 4 quizzes. Shweta, there will be 3 assignments, 2 projects, and 4 quizzes. Is that okay? Am I audible to you? Yes or no? Any other questions?
Please repeat again, sir.
Yeah, 3 assignments, 2 projects, and 4 quizzes. Somebody has helped us in just putting the words in the chat box. Is there anything like course material for the OFDP or just the sessions? There will be some course study work, or we'll also share the PPTs during the sessions. Those resource persons will be sharing their PPTs. We'll be sharing it with you so that it may give you a better output. And even we'll be having one session with Professor Arun Julka sir. He will be giving certain tips on how you can increase your teaching pedagogy and as per the new ways, and he will be giving you a complete hands-on session wherein there will be 2 sessions designated to the same. So I'm continuing the refresher without any duty leave. What will be the instruction without a duty leave? Acha, you are Dr. Chakradhar. If you are not on the if you're not you are taking option B, you will be given additional time of 15 days to complete your assignments, assignment projects and quiz. see, if you'll just go through the brochure again, you'll find that it has specifically stated that option A is for those people who will be taking duty leave, and option B is for those who are not going to take a duty leave. In those participants who are taking a duty leave, they have to submit their assignments at the end of the 15 days. And those who are not taking the duty leave, they have to submit, they will be given an extension of 15 days, further 15 days to complete their assignments. Anshika, madam, you have to upload a picture while going with the session, live session. So you are getting confused. Yes, Dr. Smith. So hope all the queries have been cleared. So we'll just wind up the session. And in case you have any, Acha, I have not availed the duty leave. I guess the extension time is related to open projects and assignment, whether the quiz is there. Quizzes also, there will be 2 attempts in the quiz. Whenever you open the quiz, you try to complete the quiz. Don't unnecessarily open the quiz, because if you unnecessarily open the quiz, your attempts will be lapsed. So for pictures during live session, do you have to turn on the camera and take a screenshot? Yes, you have to turn on the camera, then only you can take a photo. Live session photo I have uploaded every day, or only once you have, Vaishali, you just have to upload it once. Channel isn't available for you yet. The message is being displayed when trying to open the YouTube channel. I'll just share it again. In case you have a problem in this link, you can just do one thing. You can just search this on YouTube. Yes. Any more questions, or we just wind up the session? So I guess there are no more questions with the participants, and thank you for joining with this refresher course. So see you again tomorrow, same time. And I will be my team and I will be sharing the complete schedule. Your question. Ma'am, please once again write your for picture during the session. Do we need to take a screenshot of the Zoom meet or our picture? Both your picture as well as the Zoom meet. So Priyansha ma'am, I'm just winding up this session. And if they have any query, I have given a number to them on the WhatsApp group, so they can directly DM and get their queries resolved. Okay, ma'am.
Sure,
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, sir, for clearing all the doubts, and thank you all the participants for